Okay, so this is a very sudden video. As some of you may know, today a report came out talking about the closure of the Scarborough RT line in 2023. So this is going to be an unscripted video. I'm going to be looking through the report, or more accurately, the report on it done by transit advocate and historian Steve Monroe. So I'm just going to be summarizing what he says. If you want to see the article in full detail, I'll link it down below in the description, and if I remember, I'll pin it in a comment as well so that you can go over to his website and read the article in full and show him some love, because this is where I'm getting this information from. Should I ever get into monetizing my videos, I want to say right now this video will not be monetized since I am just reading off what he wrote, so it's not my work. Anyways, let's get into it. So, as of February 10th, 2021, which is a couple days from now, I had to look at my calendar there. I'm like, wait, no, today isn't February 10th. But yeah, so in a couple days from now, a report's going to go to the TTC board discussing the possibility of closing, or the recommendation of closing, the Scarborough RT line in 2023. This is because the Scarborough RT is old, it's falling apart, it's held together with like duct tape and thumbtacks and whatever you want to say. I'm surprised the damn thing doesn't shake itself to bits sometimes. So anyways, so let's go into this. So this is just the recommendation. The final report, according to Steve Monroe, will go to the board in fall of 2021, and that's when the decision will be made. So let's look through this article a bit more. So the original plan, as some of you may know, was to keep the SRT alive until 2026, when the Scarborough subway extension was originally planned to open. That, however, isn't happening anymore, since the extension now is set to open in, I think, 2030. But obviously this is Toronto, so expect that date to get pushed back even further. So let's say 2032, 2033. That's just how construction works in this city. So the SRT as it exists now, since it's falling apart, requires a large amount of maintenance, and to keep it running would require a big retrofit work, which would cost a lot of money, obviously. According to Monroe, one of the things he says is that one of the key problems is the signaling system, which is the Sailtrack CBTC system, is a bit out of date. Okay, maybe a bit is probably understating it. I think it's the same system from 1985, so it's kind of like still using like a Mac or a PC from that age. So that has to be fixed. That would have to be fixed as well, which, as we'll see later in this article, brings up the question, is that even worth it? Why would you go through the expense of installing a brand new signaling system, testing and all that stuff, if it's only going to be in service for like 4 years, right? There's no logic to that. So according to this, several options were considered. One of them was a hybrid SRT bus service, which would include major reconstruction of ongoing maintenance, including installation of a new signaling system, which waste of time and money, obviously, and the onboard control system. Buses would supplement the SRT service because of the fleet would be unavailable during the transitional period. So yeah, they would have to take some trains out of service during this to have them renovated and all that stuff, which would require bus service as well on top of that. Option 2 was keep the SRT in operation to 2023 with new buses procured for replacement service from 2023 to 2030. So yeah, just keep the RT running till 2023, and in the meantime, buy more buses and then find a place to store them, since, as far as I know, even with the new McNichol garage coming online this year, the TTC is going to be a bit short on space in the next couple of years anyways. Option 3 was to keep the SRT in operation to 2023 and with spare buses in the current fleet to 2026 and the new buses thereafter. So yeah, basically keep the RT running until 2023, use spare buses now, and then in 2026 get some new ones, or have new ones by then. Option 4 was a life extension of the Scarborough RT to 2026, which not happening. Option 5, purchasing used vehicles from the Vancouver SkyTrain system. I know this is one that was talked about a bit by people within the transit fan community, but by the end of this we see why that option wasn't chosen. And then option 6 was replacing the Scarborough RT fleet with the new Mark III vehicles. Okay, well, there's an obvious problem with that. If we were going to go through the expense of upgrading the line, expanding the stations, building a new station at Kennedy, and all that stuff, then what's the point of the subway extension, right? Why would you pay all that money to upgrade the RT to the new vehicles if you're just going to be replacing it 5 years later? That makes no damn sense. And this is what we talked about in 2006 when they were talking about upgrading the RT to the Mark II trains. But that didn't happen because the Transit City project came around. And we decided that, you know what, we don't want this RT stuff. We're going to go with the LRT. And then a couple years later, we decided, no, we don't want that either. So it says here, option 4 through 6 was dropped from consideration for various reasons, which will be discussed later in the article, so we'll get to that. Common of both surviving options is the 2023 shutdown of the SRT. So basically, by the looks of this report, unless some miracle happens, the RT is gone by 2023. So there's, beyond 2023, various options because of fleet plans, capital spending, constrained budgets in the coming years. Option 2 apparently suffers from the need for advanced capital spending into the near term. Buses for 2023, yes. So we would have to spend money now to get the buses later in 2023. So that would require more capital spending, which would be on the city and maybe the province to deal with. So anyways, keeping the SRT alive to 2030. Yeah, so the SRT vehicle reliability has declined. Yeah, no duh. Anybody who rides the thing for the past 10 years can tell you that. The overhauls provided some sort of short-term improvement, yes. So the last overhaul included some small things, and I believe that was also when the RTs were given their new wrap in the blue paint scheme to replace the old one. But the last overhaul didn't address all of the issues, and there are still some problems that still exist within the trains themselves. Reliability is projected to continue on a downward slope, as one would expect with things that get older. And an increasing number of major service disruptions would probably happen, which, yeah, of course. In addition, there are other factors such as the system signal failure because it's old. It's from the 80s. Yeah, it has to go. Weather-related problems such as snow and ice accumulation in the winter, which is something I addressed in my video about the Scarborough RT, in that every winter, if snow and ice builds up on the magnetic rail, you end up with these service disruptions where the whole line is just out because of that. I didn't address the signal system much except for my comment about how the system uses axle counters, which for the time I guess were good, but today axle counters they can be easily fooled by things obstructing them, and then you end up having trains stopped on line for something that isn't there. Oh yeah, I also did a video, I should have said this at the beginning, but I also did a video on the Scarborough RT on this channel. It's 29 minutes long, so maybe have it on in the background while you work on other things, your choice, but it's on the video, linked in the description, linked in the top corner, linked at the end of the video, because it's topical, so let's keep going. So to keep the SRT fleet alive would require significant maintenance actions are needed to the truck and key areas of the car bodies to achieve state of good repair. So the trucks, that's where the wheels and stuff are, and the body itself, because, yeah, as somebody who's been riding the Scarborough RT for God knows how long, I was born in Scarborough and briefly moved to New York and North York and Etobicoke, and then came back to Scarborough in 2000. So it's been about 21 years now that I've been riding the Scarborough RT off and on, and I used to ride it all the time when I was in George Brown College as my way to get downtown. So anyways, so if you've ever rode the RT, you know that this thing is shaking itself to pieces. I don't know if it was after the most recent update or if it was before the most recent upgrade or whatever, the overhaul, but I remember seeing the floor coming undone on certain parts. You'd see gaps in where the floor and the seats meet. It's a bit interesting. So track quality is a driving force behind truck stresses and fatigue life, pointing to the need for ongoing track remediation. Yes, because once again, the tracks are also old. And I also addressed in the video that I believe the rubber dampeners underneath the tracks have also worn out, and that's why the Scarborough RT between Midland and the Scarborough Centre Station is an absolute racket. It's deafening on that thing sometimes. Vehicle, car body structural concerns have been addressed as part of the current life extension overhaul program, but critical areas require frequent and regular monitoring to ensure the safety of the vehicles. Yet, once again, the damn thing's falling apart. Many components of existing equipment have become unavailable, necessitating active obsolescence management. Yes, so parts. Nobody makes these trains anymore because nobody... Okay, so Toronto, Vancouver, and Detroit still use these trains, but Bombardier doesn't make the parts for them anymore since Bombardier is now 2 generations removed from the original Mark 1s. We are now at the Mark 3s, and these trains are pretty much, for all intents and purposes, different from the original, so you can't swap parts here. Keeping the vehicle onboard controller, which is what operates the train, through 2030 may be best achieved by replacing the original 1980s equipment with new updated equipment. So that's upgrading the computer system, which is a waste of money when you think about it. Why would you go through that expense if it's only going to be in use for like 4 or 5 years, right? There are significant risks and cost and schedule factors associated with either the replacement or refurbishment of the vehicle onboard controller. Over 30 plus years of revenue operation to date, the currently installed SRT VOBC, the onboard controller, units have undergone modifications as part of needed ongoing maintenance just to keep the system operational. So that, given that the length of time for the recommended implementation of the new third generation VOBC upgrade is 4 years, out of the projected 10-year service extension to 2030, only 6 years of beneficial use would be realized, even though the onboard equipment itself has a design span for 25 years. So you're buying something that lasts 25 years, but only using it for 6. That doesn't make sense, right? On top of this, a new signal system would have to be integrated into the existing infrastructure, and the old system would continue to deteriorate during the transition. The overhaul period for vehicles would run from 2021 to 2024, during which full service on Line 3 would not be possible, and you would have maybe half the number of trains operating the line. Yeah, so the propulsion system, the automatic train operation or ATO system, including the vehicle on board system and the linear induction motor propulsion control system, would have to be upgraded. Truck assemblies, including structural side frames, axles, and wheel assemblies, brake systems, hydraulic systems, magnetic track brakes, hydraulic power units, hydraulic control units, all would have to be upgraded. Door systems, including frames, mechanisms, and and electrical controls, all have to be redone. Accessible features, upgrade to station stop announcement system would have to be redone. Really, though? Okay. Well, yeah, because if I'm not mistaken, the SRT still uses the human voice, which, to be honest, I prefer, and I think most people do over the automated robotic voice, but whatever. So that would have to be changed for some reason. And closed-circuit television system, so the CCTV system would have to be installed. So that's, I guess, why we're not going to upgrade the Scarborough or extend the life of the current Scarborough RT, because all that work would have to be done, and you're spending all that money for what, right? So then we look at the bus replacement options. So these include the SRT continues to operate with its current 4 to 5 trains until it's shut down in 2023. Additional bus capacity would be needed at the Scarborough Town Center, so 6 to 8 additional bays. So where are those going to come from? I don't know. Maybe they kick Greyhound and them out of the terminal, but I doubt that. And Kennedy, so at least 4 bus bays plus circulation. So maybe just continue to use that old temporary bays they put in there for the Eglinton Crosstown construction, if those are still there. Road improvements along major bus corridors would be implemented, including larger stopping areas, queue jumping lanes, and signal timing changes for frequent buses. And I would assume that this would also include the addition of bus lanes themselves, so painting the lanes red like they did along Eglinton. If a problem with the SRT fleet reduced the number of available vehicles below 4, the SRT shuttle would be implemented immediately, as is now done for equipment breakdowns. So, yeah, so that doesn't change. If the line doesn't operate, you get the shuttle buses. Nobody likes that. I avoided that like the plague when I was in college. If I knew the SRT was shut down, I just took the Markham Road bus to Warden Station, because I am not sitting on a shuttle bus. But I know some people just don't have that option, and I feel for them having to deal with that. Option 2 would entail the purchase of 60 new hybrid buses, but by 2023-2024, they would be due for midlife overhaul by 2029. Option 3 would reduce the fleet's spare ratio temporarily until 2026, with 20 new buses per year to be purchased between 2027 and 2029. The Scarborough bus network would obviously be reconfigured, obviously, to make up for the lack of the SRT. So I'll put this image in the video. This is the image of the current Scarborough bus network as it exists today and as it will exist by 2023. And now let's quickly look at the what the changes are. So all the changes here are in blue. So this would include, well, pretty much a whole thwack of changes here. So you can just see all of these bus route changes that would be changed. Pertinent to me because I live on Lawrence Avenue. So it says here on this map that the 954 would be extended down to Kennedy, which is actually pretty damn neat. But whatever. So you can see at this picture, pause, look at it, do what you will. But let's look at what's happening here. So yeah, so it's obvious that since these buses would have to replace the Scarborough RT, this would obviously require a increase in service levels to deal with the fact that now you have, I think the Scarborough RT moves like 50,000 people a day or something like that. So you'd have to move them onto buses, which obviously requires a lot of planning and more buses, obviously. So travel times between Scarborough Town Center and Kennedy would rise from 10 to 15 to 18 minutes, so an extra 5 to 8 minutes on your commute. But this would be partly offset by the elimination of the transfer connection at the STC for routes providing through service. The level of service on which corridor is chosen would be a substantial increase over current operations with predictable efforts for nearby residents. So I guess that's just deciding which corridor to go with. And judging by that map we just saw, it seems like Kennedy is the preferred corridor for this expansion of bus service. So let's quickly just look at what was discarded. So the first one was the life extension to 2026 of the Scarborough RT. So as we mentioned before, extending the SRT to 2026 will not eliminate but simply delay the inevitable, the point at which operations would have to change to bus. So like I said, it's only delaying the inevitable. As I said in my video, extending the life of the Scarborough RT as it is today is simply beating a dead horse. It's thoroughly in the ground at this point. So if we keep going, it's just delaying the inevitable. In the interim, because the vehicle infrastructure would not receive the aggressive overhaul completed in option 1, they would continue to deteriorate, obviously, and some pillaging for spare parts might be needed to keep minimum fleet running. With a small 28-car fleet, there is not much headroom for this approach. Yeah, so the TTC only owns 28 Mark I cars. So even one car, going out is a big blow to the system, and there's not a whole lot of spare parts floating around at McCowan Yard. They looked at buying some vehicles from Vancouver, which still has some Mark I's, but there are some differences between them. One of them being the Vancouver Mark I's don't have space for an operator's cap because the Vancouver trains are completely automatic. They don't have any sort of manual drive capability outside of emergency situations. So if we were to get the Vancouver trains, this would mean moving the SRT to full automation instead of the sort of half and half it exists as today. They looked at just simply buying trains for spare parts, but regardless of whichever they would have gone with, these vehicles would not be available until 2024, which would not forestall cannibalization of the current fleet as it is, because even if we purchase new vehicles, those new vehicles don't arrive till 2024, and, well, the deterioration of the line as it is today doesn't just stop. It'll continue to deteriorate. The Mark III vehicle upgrade, obviously I discussed this at the beginning. Why would you do that if you're only going to be using these new trains for 6 years? Meanwhile, you have to extend a bunch of the stations, build a new station at Kennedy because the Mark III trains simply cannot take the corner into Kennedy Station. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of money. If we were going to do that, we would have done it in 2006 when we discussed it the first time. Accessibility issues, yeah, because on the Scarborough RT, Kennedy and Scarborough Town Center are the only accessible stations. The TTC has known for a while that the SRT is going to be closed down, so they're not even going to bother making Lawrence, Midland, and Ellesmere and McCowan accessible, because why? And the TTC would have to run a parallel bus service for accessible uses, and, well, that's going to happen anyway, so So, looking at some of the costs, right now, the TTC currently has $47 million budgeted between 2021 and 2026 for state of good repair of the SRT. This drops off in 2023 as a major overhaul work was planned to end. That was when the overhaul was planned to end, but that's not happening now. The basic cost of running the SRT is $20 to $22 million, so there's a random fact for you. The total cost, if I'm reading this right, it seems the total cost of upgrade of extending the life of the SRT today would be $522 million, which is a lot of money. That's $500 million to keep this thing running for another, at this point, that would be 5 years. It's 2021, right? So obviously options 2 and options 3 are much cheaper since they don't include the overhaul. And instead you can direct some of that money to the buses and making sure that we have enough buses for that. Although I do wonder if we, like I said at the beginning, if we do buy new buses, where are we going to store them? Because I don't think, I think McNichol Garage probably keeps the network good for now. But if I'm not mistaken, like by 2023 or 2024 would be at capacity again anyway. So I wonder if this would include TTC leasing some garage space, maybe from York Region or something like that. But anyways, that's just a brief discussion of what's happened and what's probably going to happen in 2023 when the SRT is officially shut down. Like I said, if you want to see the article in full, it's linked down in the description below, and I'll pin it in the comment as well if I remember to do that. But anyways, this is just a random video, and I've been rambling now for about 21 minutes. So with that, yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. And the next video, I hope, will be a scripted one, but I don't expect anything new to happen in the next week or so, but you never know. So yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.